Are you ready to go on a journey through the highs and lows of the music world? Because today we are counting down the 5 best and worst rap albums of the 2020s so far. Now, in the 2020s, hip hop has entered a new age both for better and for worse. From gifted creative minds dropping some of the most boundary pushing and important albums in hip hop history to whatever this is,
God did.
The 2020s have been an era filled with groundbreaking modern classics, yet also some of the most abysmal excuses of an album that I have ever heard. Today, I'm going to be showing you not just the best albums that have came out during this new creative renaissance for rap music, but also some of the most offensively bad albums that hip-hop has ever received, not just in this decade, but of all time. Now, if you're ready to see the modern musical experiences that will change your life either for better or for worse, let's waste no time and let's get right into it. Starting off with the worst albums at number 5, we got a record that is the musical embodiment of human greed. Pop Smoke's Faith, and when it comes to every single album that I have ever heard, I don't know how many I despise more than this. Now, without understanding the context behind Faith, it's just an absolute mess of a drill album and really nothing else, but once you realize why this album was made, it's impossible to not hate every second of it. For those who may not know, Faith was made by Pop Smoke's label as they scraped up the last demos and songs he had left in the vault just so they can monetize his name and brand one final time well after his story had been told and his legacy had been cemented. Pop already had a beautiful and powerful send-off with 2020 Shoot for the Stars, Aim for the Moon, which 50 Cent did a phenomenal job executive producing, and this record just came in and dampened just how impactful Pop Smoke's last album was supposed to be. With a record like Faith, it's just a clear attempt at milking a deceased artist's legacy, and it is disgusting for that. It's clear that everything we hear from Pop Smoke on this album should have never left the vault, as his verses and hooks make demos sound complete. They are that raw, and the features on this album make absolutely no sense, and just when you thought things couldn't get more lazy on the record, they put Dior on the 4th straight project under Pop Smoke's name. Could you imagine if this happened with any other artist? It's just such a lucrative way to bloat an album's track list. Now, one of the reasons that Faith gained so much buzz when it first came out was because of the features, but when we look at the star power that the album is loaded with, while it would have been cool to hear Pop Smoke collaborate with all of the stars they used to extend the runtime of this album when he was alive, having him work with all these artists who we never even knew if he liked, it just adds another layer of disgust, disappointment, and confusion to the album. From a fundamental level, Faith just makes no sense. Pop Smoke's vocals are not even present for half of the album because there was that little to work with, and the features from all of the A-list artists, no matter if you're Kanye West, Future, Dua Lipa, or another musical superstar, it all just feels so misplaced within this type of environment. It's just so off-putting as a music fan when we see beloved artists who passed away get milked for everything they are worth, and we get weird collaborations like this. So all in all, when we look at Faith, beyond the mediocre confusion it stirs up through its odd Pop Smoke performances that should have never left the vault and its confusing features, it reminds us about the disgusting truth that the music industry will never stop exploiting an artist after they pass away, and with this album spitting on Pop Smoke's legacy just for a quick buck, I had to put it on this list. This was unexcusable. Rest in peace, Pop Smoke, you did not deserve this. Going on to the best albums, before we get into the number 5 spot, I actually want to go through my entire top 10 because the 2020s have given us so many great albums that I wouldn't be doing this video justice if I didn't give you this full list. So coming in at number 10, we got Kanye West Donda, and between the epic spectacle this album brings through its grandiose sound and big name features including Jay-Z, Andre 3000, and The Weeknd, to Kanye's own performance, which masterfully captures both his faith and love for his mother, along with his sonic genius, this record is one to remember. Coming in at number 9, we got Westside Gunn's Pray for Paris, and if you're into underground and abstract hip-hop, this is one of the best experiences you will ever find. From Westside Gunn's ear for lavish yet grimy beats to his collaboration ability, he assembles the ultimate group of MCs and producers, including names like Tyler the Creator, Joey Badass, Freddie Gibbs, DJ Premier, and and many others, all to show just how far he has made it in the rap world. Now, speaking of Tyler the Creator, we got Call Me If You Get Lost at number 8 for being the ultimate highlight reel of everything that makes Tyler so great, from his larger-than-life persona, eccentric lyrical and storytelling performances, and of course his pristine and boundary-pushing production, which makes this record truly like nothing else you will ever find in the hip-hop world. And coming in at number 7, we got Denzel Curry's Melt My Eyes, See Your Future. And when it comes to a record that evolves hip-hop's classic jazz rap sound while also being a powerful introspective journey that makes you examine your own self, this record is truly in a league of its own. And at number 6, we got Black Thought and Danger Mouse's Cheat Codes. And from Black Thought's godly lyricism, Danger Mouse's distorted and sonic genius, to the features from MF Doom, A$AP Rocky, and many other elite MCs, this album truly embodies what it means to be a collaborative effort. And with all that out of the way, we are at number 5 with Travis Scott's Utopia. Now, I hope I'm not saying this too soon, and I hope I don't regret this when I look at this list in the future, but Utopia is one of the most thrilling albums that I have ever heard in my lifetime. From top to bottom, Utopia does not have a bad track, and its dark musical world sets the perfect tone for Travis Scott to deliver the most ambitious album of his career over. Utopia takes influence from all corners of the music world, from Playboi Carti's rage sound to Westside Gunn's abstract opulence to records like Donda and Yeezus, which Travis used throwaway assets from. The way Travis takes all of these things that we already love and twists them with his psychedelic nature is insane and genius. There are so many moments on this album that will just blow you away from how cinematic they feel, and time again, Travis puts his all into this record to create his most dynamic performance to date. We see some of the best rapping of his career on tracks like Schizo and My Eyes, and the bangers on this album pack more of a punch than you could ever imagine. Meltdown with Drake and Fiend with Carti are pure insanity, and moments like God's Country and Sirens are some of the best produced tracks in recent memory, with their abrasive and intense soundscapes that push how far off the edge Travis can go. The way Travis Scott is able to seamlessly take this spacey feel of his music and twist it within this abrasiveness is so invigorating. One of the best aspects of Utopia revolves around just how well Travis is able to showcase the features on this album as well. From Young Thug to Beyonce, there are so many great artists on this record, and while they all get their chance to shine, it never feels like they are overpowering the moment or the album's vision simply because of their namesake. So all in all, seeing how experimental Travis Scott got with this album and how carefully he curated this experience from start to finish, it really represents an evolution of his artistry. Utopia is one of those albums where the artist behind it has mastered all of their skills and did everything they wanted to do with this vision, and because of this, the musical world Travis puts together leaves us with an impression like no other album ever has, and for these reasons, Utopia is cracking the top 5. Now, after talking about all of those great albums, we are back at rock bottom with the 4th worst album of the 2020s so far, with 6ix9ine's Tattletales. Now, when it comes to the career of 6ix9ine, I don't think any rapper has had quite the rise and fall like him. In 2018, it seemed like every time you blinked an eye, this guy had a new hit, and everybody in the rap world wanted to work with him. From Kanye West to Nicki Minaj, you could catch 6ix9ine alongside almost any major rapper at the time until he got locked up in November of 2018. As 6ix9ine was in jail, he went from one of the hottest rappers in the game to an artist nobody wanted anything to do with. He was labeled a rat, so when he finally released his big comeback album in 2020 with Tattletales, he was hoping to gain back the respect of the rap world, but what he actually did was dig the grave of his career even further. Tattletales wasn't just bad, but it was an embarrassing album where 6ix9ine's once controversial and provocative approach, which found him success in the late 2010s, just became corny and tired out. Everybody was sick of hearing this loud, over-the-top guy scream over songs trying to beat the snitch allegations, and because of the album's aggravating subject matter and lack of any real captivating performances from 6ix9ine, this record is just a giant abyss of nothing. Even the industry knew this at the time. Look at the features on this album. 6ix9ine really had nobody left to work with outside of Akon, Nicki Minaj, and DJ Academics. And when the wheelhouse of guests goes as deep as DJ Academics, you know you are in trouble. Going through the tracks on this album really just feels like reheating leftovers from an era that nobody has any interest in anymore. Besides Locked Up 2, which is just a far worse version of Akon's Locked Up, I kid you not, every song on this gives me a headache because of how annoying 6ix9ine is. He's got no bars, his energy is either way too aggressive or way too horny, and the beats on this album are the most boring and lifeless trap instrumentals you will ever find. There is not a single thing good about this album. So overall, Tattletales is a horrible album. It has nothing good about it, but at least it was the record that made 6ix9ine stop making rap music. Now, going back to the best albums of the 2020 so far, just as we looked at one of the most popular albums at number 5, we are now looking at one of the most underrated albums at number 4 with Injury Reserve's By the Time I Get to Phoenix. And oh my god, this album is one of the most insane records you will ever come across in your life. I will guarantee it, but to understand this record's full power, you probably need some context. Coming from the experimental hip-hop group Injury Reserve, members Richie with a T and Parker Corey finished the group's final effort by dedicating it to the third member of the trio, Steppa J. Groggs, who passed away in 2020, and this album reflects the mourning they were going through. This album is dark, and if you're into this eerie type of production, this record will grab you emotionally just from how the group is able to personify the pain they feel through both their words and production. Listening to this album feels like you are slipping into this void, one where you can't see anything and you're only left facing your emotions. It's this way Injury Reserve is able to separate the listeners from everything else going on around them and make them focus on themselves, which is so unique and so ethereal compared to every other album out there. In this type of atmosphere, you are able to feel the stages of grief both through fiery bursts of rage, but also through somber realizations that life is moving on and their friend is never coming back, and this is the sad realization that the album leaves you with. Now, when you look at the symbolism of this record, the word Phoenix in the title represents a figure of rebirth, a continuation of life, but as you listen to the record, you see that the group is nowhere near this point. While albums holding similar meanings tend to end it with a somewhat bittersweet conclusion of some sort, Injury Reserve ends this album in just as hopeless of a state as it began. The group understands they need to continue to live their everyday lives, but it doesn't take away from the pain they are facing, and this is what makes this album so brilliant. With messaging so powerful, and lyricism so poignant, and production so vivid, you can feel every aspect of this album, and it is truly a once-in-a-lifetime musical experience. As humans, we will always be faced with the idea of losing somebody, and accepting the reality of it isn't easy. Now, in the case of this album, it showcases the real human emotions we go through when mourning, and in an industry and landscape where people either shy away from these topics or just simplify the complexity of our own emotion, it's so important that we have an album like this, and for this heartbreaking yet endlessly powerful message. By the Time I Get to Phoenix is at the number 4 spot on this list. Now, just as I had to talk about one of the most powerful records you will ever hear, now I gotta talk about one of the most garbage records you will ever hear with DaBaby's Baby on Baby 2. Now, in hip-hop, we have gotten a lot of amazing sequels over the years. You can name them forever. The Carter 2, King's Disease 2, Meet the Woo 2, DS2, the list goes on of phenomenal sequel records, and when we look at Baby on Baby 2, this is not one of them whatsoever. Baby on Baby 2 is arguably the biggest joke of an album that I have ever heard. I really mean that. DaBaby just puts on the most passionless and lifeless performance I have ever heard, all while he tries to win fans back over after the series of really weird and strange things that he did, and in all honesty, those weird things didn't stop on this record. From weird lines that are kind of uncomfortable to listen to DaBaby trying to call out Megan Thee Stallion to make some sort of moment on this album that just felt flat amongst every other thing, DaBaby just embarrasses and soils any chance he had of redemption on this project. It's so offensive to listeners when you recycle the same thing you did 5 years ago just 1,000 times worse and expect us to eat it up. There is nothing new going on in this record, and in a moment where DaBaby could have made some sort of mature record following up on his great verse from Donda's Jail Part 2, or could have at least tried to use a different flow just once, we get the most lazy and thoughtless album that I have ever heard. Listening to Baby on Baby 2, it's just so sad because DaBaby is rapping over the same type of beats everybody has made fun of him for countless of times with the same exact flow that everybody is sick of hearing, and he's got no rhyme or reason to any of it. It's these types of projects that are so pointless and aimless that are diluting the music market and making people lose interest in hip-hop as a whole. So for DaBaby embarrassing himself with this garbage album and forever cementing his fall off, Baby on Baby 2 is the third worst album of the 2020s so far. Back to the good albums, cracking the top 3, we got Sometimes I Might Be Introvert by Lil Sims, and this is one of the most narratively dense and sonically rich albums that I have ever heard. Each one of these albums' 19 tracks packs a punch of musical beauty and lyrical richness, and this is such a special combination that embodies how beautiful hip-hop can be at its core. Lil Sims is such a gifted MC, showing off so many different flows and pockets that she can rap in to convey so many different emotions. On top of the UK rapper's own skills, the soulful, jazzy, and orchestrated beats on this album make for one of the best produced hip-hop experiences you will ever find. What makes this album such a vibrant and refreshing experience in today's music atmosphere is the way that Sims pays attention to detail. She pieces together track to track, moment to moment with so much detail and nuance that it makes for an album that's embedded with so much substance both sonically and narratively. Now, what's also great about this record is while each track holds a ton of topical and narrative value, it never feels like you're being preached to, and it makes this record so accessible to listen to in so many different settings. The way Sims gets so personal with listeners is just beautiful. Each verse she spits on this record is a conscious unraveling of her thoughts, and the way she's able to navigate such topics as finding her own worth is both beautiful and inspiring to everybody listening. It's really rare to find an album that is this well put together and is this powerful, and for those reasons, Sims really asserts herself here as one of the best storytellers, lyricists, and also vocalists in modern hip-hop. Beyond just rapping in so many different pockets and tones, Sims can also sing, and this adds a whole new dynamic to this album that enhances the listening experience. So all in all, with all of these aspects working together to make one of the best produced and written albums, not just of this decade, but in this entire century, Sometimes I Might Be Introvert is in the top 3 of this list. Please do not sleep on this record. And coming in as the second worst album of the decade so far, we got Lil Pump's Lil Pump 2. And have you noticed a theme about a lot of the albums on this list? Lil Pump joins the likes of 6ix9ine and DaBaby, as he is in a lineage of rappers who humiliated themselves this decade just trying to reach a piece of their former glory. Now with Lil Pump, he's one of those rappers who got trapped within a period in time, within a moment. Yeah, people enjoyed his bangers, but even for the biggest fans of this guy, I don't think anyone expected him to last long term in the rap game or was interested in the long-term growth of his career, as what he offered as an artist was so primitive, and this album cemented that. Over 5 years after the release of the project that made him go viral, Lil Pump tried to recapture the magic that made him a sensation in the first place and just missed the mark so terribly on everything, especially when it comes to making good music. Lil Pump is seriously one of the most insane albums that I have ever had to sit through. This record really made me question my sanity just from the fundamental thought of it existing, and as I sat down and listened to it more, things only got worse. Hearing Lil Pump scream incoherent nonsense with his second grade vocabulary level over some dated beats made this record already sound like a fossil of the past when it dropped, and this thing has aged like spoiled milk since. I genuinely can't say a single good thing about this album. It is a pure musical disaster. It is just so annoying, so redundant, so aimless, and so confusing. Everything Lil Pump could have done right, he managed to screw up. This record just lacks the sheer purpose to exist in the first place, so everything you're listening to, despite it feeling dated, despite it feeling frustrated, and despite it being mind-numbing, it just feels so pointless, and it makes it all the worse. Just when you thought things couldn't get more sour, Lil Pump had to do a collab with NBA YoungBoy on this album, and now this is pretty much just Watch the Throne for bad music. So for Lil Pump 2 being the magnum opus of a desperate attempt to regain relevancy, and it really failed at that too, reportedly selling less than 2,000 copies, this album is not just one of the worst records of the 2020s so far, but it is also one of the worst albums to ever touch my ears. Please stay away from this thing. Coming in at number 2, for the second best album of the 2020s so far, we got Kendrick Lamar's Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, and this is another record that just completely reshaped my view on how a hip-hop album can be framed as a tool of expression. After solidifying himself as one of the best rappers in the 2010s, Kendrick Lamar made his return to the rap game not only by meeting the expectations that 5 years of anticipation built to this project, but also by reinventing himself in the process. Mr. Morale is by far Kendrick's most ambitious album to date, and that is saying a lot. And all of this ambition, all of the risk-taking is centered in the story that Kendrick is telling us here. After being looked at in the public eye, especially in hip-hop culture, as some sort of god, as some sort of savior, he shows us right away that he is not the person everybody thinks he is, and he's actually quite the opposite of the way the public likes to portray him. His personal life is in shambles, his marriage is ruined, he has so many issues which he paints out in this raw and unfiltered manner, and by revealing to us his flaws, Kendrick Lamar's vulnerability makes for his most compelling performance that he's ever offered. Kendrick's journey towards healing brought out the best in his writing as he explores every corner of what got him to this point. From his family life to the vices of stardom, Kendrick Lamar shows us the key moments that have changed his life for better and for worse. Musically, Mr. Morale is just as ambitious as it is narratively, as Kendrick pushes himself in so many new directions. Kendrick raps in a multitude of different pockets and flows to narrate the different perspectives and moments of his life, and the production on this record gets more fierce than it ever has at times, but also gets more tense and hollow as Kendrick Lamar's story does as well. Through the musical and narrative chaos and through the two separate acts of this album, which work like a double disc record, Kendrick teaches us the most important lesson of them all, that none of us are perfect, and that's okay. As people, we are always struggling with imperfection, and as long as we are able to admit it and put a foot forward to become a little better than we were the day before, that's all we can do. By stripping down his persona and choosing to take care and focus on himself, Kendrick Lamar showed the music world where real strength comes from, and because of all he's able to accomplish and explore on this record, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers is the second best album of the 2020s. And now we have made it. The moment we have all been dreading. The worst album of the 2020s so far, and I gotta be honest for a second. I lied to you guys. I couldn't just pick one of these wretched projects to put in this spot, so we have a little bit of a tie. Not just a tie between 2 albums or 3 albums, but with 7 albums, all by one sinister man. Now, all coming in as the worst albums of the 2020s so far, we got Tom MacDonald's Gravestones, Flowers for the Dead, Us Against the World, No Guts, No Glory, The Revolution, Renegade, and his collab album, The Brave. And I know this may sound insane, but in all honesty, these albums are equally terrible. They are equally disgusting. Now, if you don't know Tom MacDonald, good. Please just take my word and keep it that way. Do not even listen to these albums for fun. They are that bad. They will leave scars on your life. Since 2020, Tom MacDonald has flooded the market with these projects that all preach the same conspiracy nonsense. I tried to find something of value in these records, and there is literally nothing. Even when this guy tries to speak about a more personal or sentimental topic, he just contorts whatever he is saying to fit these weird narratives that he's yapping about and ruins any sense of emotional resonance that he could ever create. I have never met a rapper who says so much, yet says absolutely nothing at all, and it's one thing to have all the subject matter of your material be fundamentally terrible, but when you also get the musical side of things wrong, you are now making bottom tier hip hop. No matter what record you look at, they all feel like they are manufactured within the same terrible mold. Almost all of this guy's music comes off as loud and obnoxious, and it's painful to sit through a single track of one of these projects. I am serious. I tried to find one song across all of these albums that was just alright and did not have any luck. It's honestly impressive how you can consistently make so many albums that all manage to hit rock bottom in terms of quality. Tom's lyrical miracle approach just makes me cringe. I don't know what other way to describe listening to this man other than gross. Musically and lyrically speaking, these albums are bad, but topically, he is just so out of touch with everything. I genuinely don't believe there is anyone who can resonate with the loose stream of angry and weird thoughts that this man just splurges out. It is just so uncomfortable to hear this man rap. So overall, Tom MacDonald and these 7 new albums that he has released this decade take the concept of terrible music, not even terrible music, just terrible art and media in general, to an entire new level. There is not a single thing remotely charming about these albums. They are just so bad and misguided. I can't stand it, and I hope I never have to listen to an album from this guy again. This guy has really left scars on my life. Please do not make the same mistakes I did. Do not listen to these albums, whatever you do. And finally, we are at number 1 for the best album of the 2020 so far, but before I announce this pick, go smash that subscribe button. It really does help me out a ton, and it is free to do. If you subscribe, you are a legend, and if you are ready now to hear what the album of the decade in my eyes is, the album that represents this current era of hip-hop and will define our generation, it's The Forever Story by J.I.D. Now, with The Forever Story, this is another record that I have praised already a lot in other videos, but I'll say it again. This is the ultimate hip-hop experience for any type of listener across the board. Jid manages to make an experience that's a fun, once-in-a-lifetime roller coaster ride on the surface, but it is so rich, complex, and powerful beyond it. Because of the way Jid is able to take every single aspect of what people love about hip-hop together and put it into one experience, we get an album that is so strong in every single category of what makes hip-hop the beloved art form it has been for 50 years, and as a result, this is truly an album for everyone, no matter what age or what era you prefer in hip-hop. If your favorite rapper is Lil Wayne, you're gonna love this record, but if your favorite rapper is Slick Rick, you are also gonna love this record. It has something for everybody. With the performance Jid offers on this album, he cements himself as one of the premier talents this decade has to offer in hip-hop. From his razor-sharp, buttery smooth flows, which pick up pace with the utmost finesse, to his storytelling, which paints you right in the action he is depicting through its vivid imagery, the performance Jid delivers is truly legendary. There has not been an album that captures the very magic, the very essence of hip-hop at this high of a level in such a long time. So refreshing to hear a new rapper respect and use what has come before them to pave something that is so groundbreaking but also so important. The Forever Story touches on the very concepts that have been in hip-hop from the very start of its birth, such as the come-up story, but does so much more with it than anybody else does. Jid doesn't just give us the typical rags to riches journey, but he narrates his journey coming up as a hip-hop artist and uses this as a device to explore so many poignant ideas. From how the journey has changed his personal life for better or for worse, to how the desire to make it big can make an artist a pawn of an industry, the scope of the Forever Story spans so wide, yet it all feels so cohesive as it all builds to tell one powerful story. So for embodying every aspect of why hip-hop is beloved as an art form and masterfully using the DNA of the genre to create something more powerful than anyone could have ever imagined, Forever Story is the album of the decade so far. So there you have it. There there is my list of the best albums of the 2020 so far and the worst, and let me know your thoughts. Do you agree with these lists? Remember, if you don't, that is fine. It's just my opinion. So head to the comments right now and drop your top 5 best albums and worst albums of the 2020 so far. I cannot wait to hear what you have to say. If you think Tom MacDonald is the worst rapper alive, hit that subscribe button. It is free to do and it helps me out a ton. And thank you so much for watching. Mr. F, Fantastic Hip Hop, signing out. Catch you in the next video.